Welcome to True Dinar Inside. We uncover the real economic forces shaping Iraq's currency. Imagine a man who wins the billion-dollar lottery. He's on the cover of every magazine. He's the talk of the town. His bank balance is a number so large it feels fictional. But then, you see him a week later, standing on the street corner, desperately trying to sell his winning lottery ticket for a few $100s to anyone who will pass by. It makes no sense, right? Why would someone with access to near unlimited wealth be so frantic for a pittance? This isn't just a hypothetical paradox. This is the exact, mind-bending reality of Iraq's economy today. The country is that lottery winner. It sits on a throne of black gold, with oil revenues that would make most nations envious. Official data shows that in just the first 8 months of 2025, Iraq generated a staggering $56.4 billion from crude. That's not just a number. That's a tidal wave of dollars crashing into the national coffers every single month. You would think that with such an incomprehensible influx of foreign currency, the Iraqi dinar would be one of the strongest, most stable currencies in the region, a fortress that could withstand any storm. But step into the markets of Baghdad or Erbil, and you find the exact opposite scene. A scene of panic, of a currency in freefall, of a government seemingly powerless to stop the bleed. This is the great Iraqi economic mystery, a riddle wrapped in an enigma, soaked in oil. So what is really going on? The answer is far more sinister and structurally broken than you might think. The core of the problem, as economic expert Hilal Altan pointed out, isn't that the money isn't coming in. It's that the moment it arrives, it enters a labyrinth of financial mechanisms and political priorities where it effectively vanishes from the view of the everyday Iraqi. Think of it like this. The dollars from oil sales enter the economy through one primary gate, the Central Bank of Iraq. This is supposed to be the engine of stability. But here's the first major twist that most people don't understand. The government, which relies on oil for a jaw-dropping 90% of its revenue, needs those dollars to fund its own massive, bloated payroll and infrastructure projects. But because Iraq's domestic economy produces almost nothing, no significant agriculture, no manufacturing exports, nothing, the government has to import everything. From the wheat for your bread to the electricity for your home, to the cars on the street, it's all imported. So, the government takes those precious petrodollars and uses them to pay international contractors and import companies. This means billions of dollars are immediately siphoned out of the country to pay for goods and services, never truly circulating within Iraq to strengthen the dinar. The dollars come in, and then they are instantly programmed to leave. But the plot thickens considerably. The real crisis, the true poison in the system, is what happens at the official currency auction run by the central bank. This auction was designed as a noble idea, to provide a legitimate channel for Iraqi businesses to get the dollars they need to conduct international trade. However, this system has been hijacked and transformed into the single biggest leak causing the dinar's value to collapse. Investigations and countless reports have revealed a shocking reality. A massive portion of the dollars sold at this auction, we're talking tens of billions, are not going to legitimate importers. Instead, they are being siphoned off through a complex web of shell companies and fraudulent invoices. The money is laundered out of the country to destinations like Jordan, Dubai, and Turkey, often to enrich a corrupt network of politically connected individuals. So, while the state is selling billions of dollars from its reserves at the official rate to these phantom importers, the dollars aren't being used to buy goods for Iraqis. They are being smuggled out and stashed in foreign assets, creating a massive, artificial drain on the country's foreign currency reserves. The World Bank states that crude exports represent over 42% of Iraq's GDP, but that figure hides a more terrifying truth. That very wealth is being used as a siphon, draining the life out of the national currency. The government is essentially funding its own currency's devaluation. It's a vicious, self-destructive cycle where the very act of earning oil money creates the mechanism for its destabilization. And this is just the first layer of this economic nightmare. So, if the currency auction is the leak, then corruption is the gaping hole torn right through the pipeline itself. But to call it just corruption is to undersell its sheer, systematic brilliance. This isn't just a case of a few officials taking bribes. This is a meticulously engineered parallel economy, a shadow financial system that operates with a brazenness that is almost admirable in its audacity. The process is chilling in its simplicity. A network of well-connected individuals sets up phantom import companies, complete with fabricated paperwork for goods that will never actually arrive in Iraq. They then go to the central bank auction and present these fraudulent invoices, requesting, for example, $100 million to pay for imported medicine, generators, or food. The central bank, often under political pressure and with limited oversight, releases the dollars at the official, subsidized rate. And here's where the real magic happens. These dollars are then immediately sold on the black market, where the exchange rate is significantly higher, generating an instant, risk-free profit of millions for the corrupt players. This isn't commerce. It's a state-sponsored heist where the national treasury is the target, and every single Iraqi citizen is the victim. The money doesn't just disappear. It is systematically extracted, laundered through luxury real estate in Dubai, invested in European banks, and used to fund lavish lifestyles abroad, all while the average Iraqi is left holding the bag, watching the purchasing power of their dinar salary evaporate with each passing day. But wait, the story gets even more complex, because the international community is not just a passive observer in this tragedy. Enter the second, devastating twist: the role of the United States and the international banking system. Following the war, the New York Federal Reserve became the primary custodian for Iraq's oil revenues. This was meant to provide transparency and security. However, in an ironic and devastating turn of events, this very mechanism of control has become a weapon of unintentional economic destruction. You see, the U.S., in its efforts to combat money laundering and, specifically, to prevent dollars from reaching Iran and Syria, has imposed incredibly strict compliance rules on all international dollar transactions originating from Iraq. This means that every time an Iraqi bank tries to process a legitimate dollar transfer for a real import, say, a businessman trying to pay for a shipment of Italian machinery, that transaction is flagged, scrutinized, and often frozen or rejected by correspondent banks in New York or Europe for fear of violating sanctions. The compliance process is so slow, so arduous, and so fraught with risk that it has created a financial paralysis. This is the cruelest catch-22 imaginable. The system designed to stop illicit dollars is simultaneously strangling the legitimate ones. So what is the result? The legitimate businessman, who needs dollars to keep the real economy running, cannot get them through the official, legal channels. He is forced to turn to the very black market that the corrupt elites have created, further fueling the demand and driving the dinar's value down even more. The well-intentioned international sanctions, aimed at stabilizing the region, have instead destabilized the Iraqi economy at its core, creating a perfect storm where the only people who can reliably move money are the criminals with their established, shadowy networks. The state, as Hillel Altan warned, is utterly helpless, caught between the sledgehammer of its own institutionalized graft and the anvil of international financial policing. There are no deterrent measures because the people who should be deterring the crime are the ones profiting from it. The government's main revenue source is oil, but that revenue is a double-edged sword. It provides the dollars that feed the corruption, which in turn destroys the currency, which then increases the government's dependency on selling even more oil to plug the budget deficits, continuing this vicious, self-cannibalizing cycle. The oil billions aren't buying stability because they are being used as the primary fuel for the engine of its destruction. So, where does this leave the future of Iraq and the ordinary citizen trapped in this economic crossfire? The trajectory is not just bleak. It's a terrifying countdown to a full-blown systemic collapse that transcends mere economics and ventures into the realm of national survival. Let's be brutally honest. The solutions that are typically proposed are nothing more than band-aids on a bullet wound. The government occasionally raids a few money changers, makes theatrical arrests, or announces a new committee to investigate the currency auction. But these are all distractions. Carefully orchestrated performances designed to create an illusion of action while the underlying hemorrhage continues unabated. The real, structural reforms needed are so monumental that they threaten the very foundations of the political system that has been built since 2003. Implementing true reform would mean dismantling the entire network of patronage and corruption that every major political party and militia relies on for its power and wealth. It would require a complete overhaul of the economy to break the stranglehold of oil, to invest in agriculture, in small and medium industries, in technology, to create something, anything, that Iraq can produce and export other than crude. But that is a decades-long project requiring political stability and a level of integrity that simply does not exist in the current climate. The bitter truth is that for the ruling elite, a weak dinar might even be preferable. It allows them to continue their lucrative schemes at the currency auction, and it means that when they convert their stolen dollars back into dinars to pay for local influence and security, their buying power within Iraq is astronomically high. They win both ways. They profit in hard currency abroad and dominate in local currency at home. The average Iraqi, however, is being slowly crushed into poverty. Imagine a teacher, a doctor, or a civil servant whose monthly salary remains stagnant in dinar terms. With each passing month, as the dinar plummets, that salary buys less milk, less bread, less medicine, less electricity. The middle class is being systematically erased, and the social contract is shattering. The despair is not just economic, it is a profound, existential resentment that simmers beneath the surface of daily life, a ticking time bomb of social unrest. This is no longer just about numbers on a screen or exchange rates in a market. It's about the slow, agonizing suffocation of a nation's potential. The oil billions, instead of building a new Dubai on the banks of the Tigris and Euphrates, are building skyscrapers in Dubai itself, owned by the very people who have bled the country dry. The nation's wealth has been converted into a one-way ticket out for its capital and, tragically, for its best and brightest minds, the engineers, the doctors, the entrepreneurs who see no future in a country where hard work is defeated by systemic graft. Iraq is being stripped not only of its financial resources, but of its human capital, its intellect, and its hope. This is the ultimate cost that no World Bank statistic can truly capture. The stability of the dinar is a mirror reflecting the stability of the state itself, and right now, that reflection is shattered. The question is no longer if another devaluation is coming, but when the next, even more devastating collapse will occur. The system is running on fumes, on the dwindling reserves of a people's patience, and the fleeting price of a barrel of oil on the global market. It is a house built on the weakest of foundations, not sand, but on a vortex of greed and international complicity. And that is the story they don't want you to fully understand, because a problem understood is a problem that can be solved, and the survival of their entire racket depends on your confusion and your silence. But the conversation doesn't have to end here. This is where you come in. We've connected these dots based on data, expert testimony, and on-the-ground reality. But this story is global. I want to know what you think. Is there a way out of this labyrinth that doesn't involve total collapse? Have you witnessed an economic paradox like this in your own country? Share your thoughts, your experiences, and your analysis in the comments below. Let's build the most insightful discussion on this topic on the entire internet. And if this deep dive into the hidden mechanics of power, and money has changed your perspective, then do your part in breaking the cycle of silence. Share this video with one person you think needs to see it. Let's turn this information into a weapon against ignorance. Because when people understand the game, they can finally change the rules.